Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you a horror story that happened to me years ago. But before we start, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now and don't forget to like this video. The morning after the night before, it had been one of those nights where I just couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, images of all the mistakes I'd made in my life flashed across my mind. The arguments I'd had with my parents, the times I'd been selfish, all the people I'd hurt, and the many times I'd disappointed myself. I'd tossed and turned all night long, which was unusual for me, because I was normally a light sleeper. By the time the sun rose, I looked like an abused piece of chewing gum, all crumpled up and ready to be discarded. It was Saturday, so I didn't have work or school to go to. So I thought I'd treat myself to a nice cup of coffee and watch a few videos on my phone while I sipped it slowly. But when I reached for my mug, I found something so disturbing inside that I nearly choked on my own spit. It was a tooth, a real human tooth. Horror. What in the world? I jumped out of bed and ran to the bathroom to see what I could see better in the mirror. The tooth hadn't fallen out of my mouth. I'd never had any dental work done, and there wasn't any sign of any cavities or anything else that could explain its presence in my mouth. Was someone playing a prank on me? I thought. They must have slipped it in there while I wasn't looking. I poured the remaining coffee down the sink, then got on the phone and called my dentist. Morning, I found a tooth in my coffee mug, and I'm wondering if it could be yours, I said jokingly. Are you pulling my leg? What? He asked. You lost a tooth in your sleep. I wish. I'm serious, I told him. Well, let me ask my hygienist. She's the only one who knows what teeth are mine. After a minute or two, he got back on the phone. That's weird. We haven't had any teeth fall out recently. Maybe it's from one of the other dentists. Dr. Miller extracted a molar yesterday, but it would have been white, not brown. I sighed in relief. Okay, well, maybe it was just a kid who lost a baby tooth and the parent carelessly threw it away here. Don't know. Maybe you should go to the police, he suggested. I hung up the phone and decided to take his advice. At the station, the officer took one look at me and burst out laughing. Dude, you're joking, right? Who loses a tooth in their sleep? He didn't take my report. Instead, he started making fun of me. Maybe you should check out the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. He likes to boil teeth and serve them as sashimi, he said, winking. Or maybe you should visit some Japanese restaurants. They love serving raw horse meat, and sometimes they put a tooth in with it. He continued to make jokes, but I was starting to get mad. This isn't funny, officer. I want to file a missing persons report. He finally stopped laughing and wrote down my statement. If anyone comes forward with a tooth that looks like this, contact me immediately, I told him. Then I went home. I sat down in my chair and thought about what the officer had said. Maybe it was a kid's tooth. But what were the chances of that, and why did it have to happen to me? As I pondered these questions, the phone rang. It was my mom. Hi, honey, she said. I wanted to see how you were doing. How was your night? Fine, I replied, not wanting to tell her about the tooth. Good. Listen, I'm going to visit Aunt Martha today. You want me to bring you anything? She asked. No, thanks, Mom, I said. Okay then, I'll see you later, she said. And then she hung up. As soon as the line went dead, I dialed her number again. Hello, she answered. Mom, did you recently lose a tooth? What? No, why would I lose a tooth? Never mind. I just thought I might have seen a tooth in my coffee this morning. I lied. Well, that's funny, honey. Are you sure it wasn't a canine tooth? A neighbor's dog likes to come into our yard and chew on things. Last week I found a canine tooth in the grass. Maybe it was the dog, she said. Okay, thanks, Mom, I replied. I was stunned. Did this mean that someone had been playing a trick on me? Was it the dog, or was something more sinister lurking in the shadows? I called the officer back and explained what my mother had told me. Came to my house to investigate, but he didn't find any evidence of foul play. Looks like you're on your own on this one, buddy, he said, scratching his head in confusion. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, hunted even. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, as if warning me of some unseen danger. I tried to distract myself by watching TV and reading, but nothing could take my mind off the unnerving thought of a tooth being planted in my coffee. Days turned into weeks, yet the mystery of the tooth remained unsolved. Sleepless nights became the norm as I grew increasingly paranoid, convinced that I was living in the shadow of some unknown stalker. Then, quite unexpectedly, I received a phone call that turned everything upside down. On the other end of the line was my mother, her voice shaking with distress. "I need your help," she whispered urgently. "Come home immediately." Without asking any questions, I rushed to my car and sped towards my childhood home. As I raced through the streets, my mind raced with possibilities. Did something happen to my mom? Was this somehow connected to the tooth? These questions pounded in my head like a drum, urging me to go faster. Bursting through the front door, I found my mom in the kitchen, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Mom, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "The tooth, it's gone," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What do you mean, gone?" I echoed, confused by her words. "I kept it in a box, but now it's not there," she exclaimed, her voice rising with panic. The tooth from my mouth." My heart skipped a beat as realization dawned on me. This was no ordinary tooth. It was the key to a terrifying secret that had been buried for years. With trembling hands, I reached for the phone, my fingers dialing 911, as the operator answered. I began to recount the strange events that had unfolded. The missing tooth, my mother's frantic call, and the unsettling feeling that I had been stalked. Each word I uttered was laced with urgency, my voice echoing the fear that gripped my soul. The operator, though calm and reassuring, asked me to stay on the line until help arrived. Minutes stretched into an eternity as I waited for the sirens that promised aid. My mind raced, weaving tales of conspiracy and unease. Was this a prank gone wrong? Had I stumbled upon something I wasn't supposed to see? The questions swirled within me, finding no answers in the silence of my home. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the tension was broken. Front door flew open, and in rushed two officers, their uniforms crisp, their expressions grave. "Ma'am, is everything all right?" one of them inquired, his voice echoing the concern that mirrored in my own eyes. As my mother explained, her voice still shaking, they listened intently, their faces betraying none of the turmoil that raged within. They exchanged glances, their eyes speaking volumes without sound. It was clear that they, too, felt the weight of the strange mystery that had descended upon our home. They questioned me, their voices level and calm, seeking every detail of the events that I had described over the phone. Each question chipped away at the surface of this enigma, yet it remained tantalizingly out of reach. The officers, though seasoned in handling various situations, seemed as baffled as I was. Their furrowed brows and thoughtful silences spoke of a case that defied easy explanation. The missing tooth, once a symbol of unease, now represented a puzzle that law enforcement had been called to solve. As they prepared to leave, promising to look into the matter further, I couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. This was no longer just a personal mystery. It had become a shared enigma, one that bound us to the whims of an investigation that promised more questions than answers. And that's all for today's episode. Please subscribe if you haven't yet and give us a like. See you next time.